We're so done with new year, new you. This year, it's more you on Bumble. More of you shamelessly sending playlists, especially that one filled with show tunes. More of you finding Geminis because you know you always like them. More of you dating with intention because you know what you want. And you know what? We love that for you. Someone else will too. Be more you this year and find them on Bumble.
Sonoro.
Hi, Tamarindo Podcast listeners. It's Brenda here. Before we start the show, I just want to send a huge thank you to Delsy Sandoval, who surprised me with the most gorgeous arrangement of flowers on Valentine's Day. They are still blossoming today because they're such an alegre arrangement. I just love it. Big thank you to Delsy. As you have probably noticed, Delsy's taking a pause from the pod. And while we miss her here terribly, we're so grateful to the friends of the pod that have joined me so far as we navigate these crazy times that we're living. All right, so today's guest is Daniel Carrillo. I first met Daniel while I was running a 5K in Griffith Park a couple years ago, and he was serving coffee. There was this huge line of tired runners waiting to get some coffee. And even from that moment, I loved his energy. Daniel is the founder of Rompe Coffee, a brand that honors his roots by sourcing beans from his family's farm in Nayarit, Mexico. You are also going to love his energy after this conversation. Daniel has been practicing meditation for 8 years, and he uses it as a pathway to connect to spirit while cultivating peace, joy, and balance in every aspect of his life. And I know that's speaking to all of us here. That's why I have him on, so that we could also maybe learn how to practice meditation. Daniel's also the host of the Rompe Podcast, where he leads meaningful conversations on overall wellness and personal growth. Daniel and I get real vulnerable as we learn about his journey into meditation. We recorded this conversation at the Octavia Lab in the Los Angeles Public Library, which offers incredible spaces and tools for makers and creatives. It was super cool. That is the home of the Rompe Podcast, as you'll soon hear us talk about as we start this conversation. Daniel also shows us a meditation we can all practice together. So let's get started. Welcome to
Tamarindo Podcast.
Hosted by me, Brenda Gonzalez, a fitness coach, political nerd, and nonprofit capacity builder.
And me, Delsy Sandoval, a Guatemalan-American licensed therapist and passionate creativity advocate. Together, we're here to uplift our community through powerful conversations with changemakers, creatives, and healers.
Each week on the pod, we talk politics, culture, and personal development. Listeners call Tamarindo the Advocacy and Self-Love Podcast. Vámonos!
Let's start the show.
Daniel, it is so wonderful to have you here at the Octavia. Where are we, by the way?
The Octavia Lounge in downtown LA.
Downtown LA,
yes.
Which is the home of what podcast?
The Rompe Podcast.
Yes, and you're the host of the Rompe Podcast. But we go back a little bit because you've been a past supporter of Tamarindo events, donated some of your delicious coffee. Mm-hmm. So let's start there. First, let's tell our listeners a little bit about who you are. You're an entrepreneur. Tell us about your coffee business.
Yeah, so it's also called Rompe Coffee. Mm-hmm. It was called something else when I met you.
I do know that, yes.
It was called Good Juju, but basically it's a coffee that comes from my family's farm in Nayarit.
Okay.
And I started it during the pandemic. I was working for a big corporation, the biggest corporation at the time, on a coffee brand.
Yeah.
And by working with them, I realized that, wait a second, my family grows coffee in Mexico. Why haven't we ever imported it ourselves? And then it got me to asking more questions. And then I realized that my family gets paid dirt cheap for their coffee from these big corporations. Mm-hmm. So I was I think it's 2022, where I told my aunt, hey, I'm going to buy all your coffee for this harvest and I'm going to sell it myself in the States. And I paid her a lot more for the coffee than she would have made selling it to the big corporations.
Yeah.
That's why it was called Good Juju at the time. But then you can listen to an episode on the Rompe Podcast.
Oh, you tell the story about the name change?
The name change, yes. I had a little dream and I changed the name to Rompe.
I really like the name. I like the name because it's Latino, right? It screams out Latino. Mm-hmm. So that's the other thing. And it's and it's such a great name for a podcast too, because it's sort of rompe stereotypes, rompe the ceiling, rompe so many things. I like the the energy behind the name. But what is the true story behind the name? Tell us a little bit more about it.
Oh yeah. So basically, it was 2023. A lot of crazy things happened. I don't know if you're a believer in, what's the word that I'm looking for here?
Like maybe cosmic forces.
Yeah,
the energy. Yes.
The
juju.
signs.
All that.
The signs. I'm looking for, what is the word? Anyways, things happen right along the way and you get like certain signs. But this summer of 2023, I applied for a grant for our business.
Okay.
And we were selected to get the grant. So we had $25,000 that were like
That's
literally
excellent.
gifted to us to continue to develop the business. And at that same time, I had this dream where Becky G, the singer,
Okay.
like I dreamt about her and she like came to me in the dream and was like, oh, I want to work with you on a coffee, on like a cold brew. And I was like, oh, sure, let's do it. And she was like, talk to my agent. And then her agent like comes over and whispers the name in my ear. She was like, you should name the coffee Rompe. And so I woke up from the dream and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to change the name to Rompe. And it even sounded better because like you said, it's more Latino. It's a Spanish word. It just resonated more than good juju.
Yeah.
So I woke up from the dream and crazy enough, it was like a month later, my sister was working for Bocha.
Oh, yes.
You lived in the neighborhood. She was the GM at Bocha at the time. And so crazy. Becky G calls the restaurant and asks for the GM to reserve like the private room for her and her family. So
yes.
Becky
Out of
G,
all artists, like the one you dreamt about.
yeah,
Okay.
she comes, she eats at, my sister serves on her, and my sister is able to show Becky G the concept of our coffee. She even took some bags home. But yeah, that was kind of crazy, right? Like I had this dream and then I worked on the concept and then my sister like meets her and shows her the concept. It was wild. Becky G does not know about the dream, by the way. She'd probably think it was weird, right?
Maybe she's going to listen to this podcast and discover it.
Yeah. I'm like, come on. Yes. And by the way, Brenda, I have some coffee for you.
Oh, yes.
To take home.
Excellent.
I have a little gift. Yes. Please remind me.
Well, this is very cool. And let me tell you that, okay, I know that your previous business supported Tamarindo. And then months later, or maybe even a year later, we run into each other at a concert.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so great to see you. It was such a great, it was such a, like a, it was a cumbia night, right? Cumbia night at the Ford.
Cumbia.
Such great energy. That concert was really super fun. And then I was like, I got to look up what's up with Gujuju. And I couldn't find you. And I was like, oh, I wonder what happened. And then suddenly I get in my feed this new podcast, this Rompe Podcast. And that's how I discovered that the business continues. It's just a different name.
Mm-hmm.
And this is so exciting. Okay, so now I want to talk about the podcast. So tell me, I'm already a subscriber. I'm already a fan. I've already been sharing it on Tamarindo. I think it's got a lot of great energy behind it. So what's the vision behind your podcast?
Yeah, so I host it with my best friend. Her name's Janine, and we've been best friends since high school. So 20 years now. Mm-hmm. And we've always kind of thought about doing something like this. I remember I make fun of it because we actually have a recording. I think it was 2017. We were both drinking wine. And I set up a camera and I was like, let's do it right now. And we have like a whole hour of us just like bantering.
God.
Like,
keep it.
Yeah.
Podcast.
Maybe one day I'll release that. I'm like, hey, that was the like.
Make it like a subscriber premium.
Oh yeah,
you
right.
have to pay for this
to watch this banter. Like, so that's how it kind of like the idea started and has been ruminating. But then last year I was like, girl, like we've been talking about this. Why don't we do it? Let's, I think the intention behind the coffee is actually really the intention for the podcast, right? Like, like you said, rompe means to break. That's literally the definition, to break barriers, to break stereotypes, to break limiting beliefs, right? Things that you think you can do. So it kind of all comes in together. I'm the son of two immigrant parents. So for me to even be here, get an education in the States, then be able to start my own business, it's already breaking, right? Like it's already breaking barriers. I'm already doing something like very significant, right? And then a podcast is something that you think you can't do. Well, I was like, F that. We're going to do it because we're going to break that fear of thinking that we can do something. So I was like, let's do it. And that's how we just named it Rompe, because we were like, let's just kind of play. We already have followers for the coffee. Let's just kind of integrate both things and see where it goes.
Perfect.
So yeah, that's kind of how it came to be. And the intention behind the podcast is really to talk about meaningful conversations that promote personal growth and well-being, at least for me, right? So we have 5 episodes out right now, and it's on gratitude, one's on friendship, one's on cultivating inner peace. So those are the things that her and I talk about anyways as friends on a daily basis when we see each other. So now it's just talking about it on a podcast, it's a little bit more difficult, as you know, right? It's not as natural,
the
but
logistics behind it. The
yeah,
and all that.
yeah. So that's kind of the intention behind it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, as a listener, I find a lot of calma hearing first of all, I like your energy between the two of you. You could tell that you're best friends. There's very easy banter. Mm-hmm. So that's great. You know, that's like a barrier that you don't have to overcome because it's already there. But also I like this kind of thread of well-being and wellness. And I decided that it would be great for us to connect again and have you on Tamarindo because especially right now, we're in 2025. It is a very chaotic year. Mm-hmm. We're under, especially as immigrants or children of immigrants, our community is under attack. Our various identities within our community are also under attack. So it's a time where we can feel very overwhelmed. And I know that you had a conversation about meditation. And so this is something that I've heard for a long time, the countless benefits of meditation, but that I've never successfully done. at least I don't think so. Tell me about your journey into meditation. How did you get into it? You've been doing this for a long time. Give us that background.
Okay, so to be honest, this is the first time that I talk about this so publicly because it's not something that I'm proud about.
Really?
Yeah.
This is such an excellent skill. But
you think like, oh, meditation, right? No. I started meditating, or I found meditation in 2017. Mm-hmm. And it was a time in my life. I was working for a beer company at the time. Mm-hmm. And to be honest with you, I was like addicted to all types of drugs, to alcohol, but I was a very like functioning like alcoholic and drug addict, I guess, if that's what you want to call it, right? Like no one really knew. Like my coworkers didn't know, my family didn't know. I was very like high functioning and I was addicted to quite a few things.
Yeah.
So it's sometimes when you're like in that dark space that you start to ask God, if you believe in God, right? Like you start to ask God for help to like kind of like overcome some of those things.
Yeah.
And it was my 27th birthday. So it was the night before my 27th birthday. I was sitting outside of a club, smoking a cigarette. Like I said, addicted to all sorts of things, but I was smoking a cigarette. It was raining. And this guy approached me outside of the club and was flirting with me and invited me out for coffee the next day. And so I went out to coffee with him. And right across the street from this coffee shop was a meditation studio. And it just so happened that our conversation had to do with yoga. He was a yoga teacher. So he was like, oh yeah, I'm a yoga teacher in Texas. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. At the time, I didn't really know much about yoga. But then he pointed out, look, there's a meditation studio. Maybe you should go check it out one day. And that's the last time I saw him because he went back to Texas. But I think that night was very like purposeful. Again,
he did what he came here to do. Is point that studio to you. Wow.
Yes. Synchronicity. That's the word I was looking for earlier. I was trying to look for the word. So it stayed in my mind. And a few weeks later, I went to take a one class, right? And it was the first time, I think it was a yoga nidra class where you lay down and you're guided through a meditation on the floor. And it was the first time that I felt like, I don't know, it was just like a very peaceful experience. Like I was like, whoa, I really like this. I really, really like this. So I started going more often. And then a year and a half later, 2018, I signed up to like for a training for a 400-hour meditation teacher training. And I did that for 4 months. So I got this training. I went on a 1-week retreat to a Buddhist monastery for the very first time.
Wow.
And was like spent that week with the monks. Then a few months later, I went on a 1-month retreat to India with a meditation teacher. So like it just like started to roll, and I really felt like for me it was definitely like spiritual, right?
Like a calling.
Yeah, it's not just
a place to be. This was for you.
Yeah, I think here in the West, like in the States, we use yoga and meditation as a form of exercise, which it is, right? When you do yoga, you're exercising, and you know we also promote it as like to get rid of stress and to find more inner peace and balance and all of those things, which it does. But for me, it also goes beyond that. I think that meditation is the pathway to connect to spirit. And that's a lot deeper. Like it's a deeper reason why I meditate. Like when I sit down and meditate, that is where my concentration goes. I pray, I keep my mind on God. And as a result of that, you do get those benefits of less stress, more peace, more joy, more balance. But really, the intention for me is to use it as a form to connect to spirit.
This is wow. Thank you so much for being so vulnerable and telling us your story, and that's how exciting I think that you were able to get so immersed in something that you found a lot of benefit from, and that we all have heard is incredibly beneficial. And for the reasons that you listed, that might seem a little more surface level, but you have found that it's even deeper, much more deeper meaning for you, and perhaps maybe for those of us that are kind of curious about this, that could be an additional benefit, is that this could be more than beyond the surface level benefits that we hear of. How have you stayed committed to this practice? How does it show up for you every day? Like, what does it look like to be, a practitioner of meditation?
Yeah, so it was definitely on that India trip that really solidified like my practice in meditation. I went to India with, like I said, with the meditation teacher, and we went into a bookstore, and I asked them to give me a book. I was like, hey, pick a book for me. And my teacher gave me Autobiography of a Yogi, which is actually a book that Steve Jobs gave to everyone who attended his funeral. So everyone who went to his funeral got a copy of this book because his book, he's the one that actually put it on the Apple Store, which is crazy, right?
Interesting.
That's how the book is known. I didn't know anything about this book, but I got the book. I started reading it. It was 2019. And by the end of 2019, that year, I went to the temple. I realized that the headquarters of this organization, led by this spiritual teacher, his name's Paramahansa Yogananda, is actually here in Los Angeles, which is crazy. One of the temples is actually in Pacific Palisades, and it's the only temple that didn't burn with the fires. A couple of, like, the temple, everything around it, everything around it burned, and the temple's still up. It's beautiful. If you're in LA, you need to go check out the gardens there. It's one of the most beautiful, like, gardens in all of LA. So I highly recommend it. But I came back, I started reading the book. I really got into the practice that this organization promotes. So that's kind of the meditation that I do. But I've also been exposed to other forms of meditation, like Buddhism. I spent 2 months at a Buddhist monastery on a retreat 2 years ago. I also recently did another 10-day retreat. So I've consistently done meditation retreats because it's a way to recenter myself. When I go on retreat, you disconnect, you unplug, and you really focus on your well-being. And so I highly recommend it for everyone, because if you're, especially right now, like you were saying earlier, in today's world where everything seems so like overwhelming, obviously, like the politics isn't helping. There's just so much out there. Like the news is completely overwhelming. You really should have some type of practice to like recenter yourself, to come back to yourself, to not get taken so away from all of this like chaos, right? Because there could be a lot of chaos, but if you have some inner peace and stillness, then you're not going to be completely like ripped away by all of these things that are happening around you. So that's why meditation, in my opinion, is very important, because it helps, to center yourself. Yeah.
As you're describing this, I'm imagining that like you're sort of shielded, like literally I'm envisioning like this shield around your body, and you're maybe under a waterfall, and all of those currents can pull you away. But if you're centered, then you can sort of weather that storm, right? Like the storm comes, those waves will come. But if you can sort of center yourself, it kind of provides that shield, that way to guard you. That's what I'm envisioning as you're describing this. All right. So for people like me that have had a hard time conceptualizing of the possibility of being able to meditate, what are some tips? Like what would be a couple of tips that you might give to someone that's new to it, considering it? Let's start with that.
Well, one, it is very intimidating at the beginning, right? Because it sounds like an easy thing to do, to sit still, close your eyes, sit still. But as we know, because the world is so crazy and chaotic, we close our eyes and the thoughts start to take over, right? Like our problems start to take over, the to-do lists, the things that I need to do, like all of these things just start to like flood the mind. And that's okay. Like, first of all, that is okay. It's okay to feel that at the beginning. And even as, I've been meditating for 8 years now, And I still have times where I sit down and the thoughts are just like scrambling in my mind, right? They're passing, but you just need to know that that's normal.
Okay.
Thoughts come and go. Yeah, it's almost like, I don't know who alluded to this, probably a Buddhist monk, but the sky is blue and the clouds come in. But that doesn't mean that the clouds are going to, like the sky is still blue. The clouds are going to come in and out. So that's kind of the thoughts as well. A thought is kind of like a cloud. It comes in and it goes out.
Yeah.
And we just need to be aware of those thoughts, right? Just witnessing that the thought is coming in, but the thought is not us, right? The emotion's not us. Those are just things that are kind of passing through our being, through our awareness, and we just let them go. So the first tip is for me is like, be okay, like know that it's okay.
Everyone's going to have these thoughts. That's normal.
That's normal.
Even giving yourself the permission to say, like, if this happens, that's normal.
That's normal, yeah.
Yes,
and I'm going to bring it back to the present moment. I'm going to bring it back to my breath. And I'm going to let that go. Like, let it go. Just like anything in your life. Sometimes you got to let that shit go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let it go.
Yeah, let it go. So that's number one. Just being okay or just knowing that it could be a little overwhelming at first, but it takes practice. And once you practice enough, that's just going to be completely normal. A thought's going to come in and you're going to catch it quickly, right? You're going to say, you're going to be able to say like, oh, thoughts coming in, letting it go. That's not important right now. Number two, I think where a lot of people get confused maybe, or they don't know how to even start, is like even just knowing posture, like correct posture. Knowing how to like sit appropriately so you're getting the most benefit out of your meditation.
What would be some checks that you might do with your body to check for that?
Yeah, so if you're sitting on a chair, which I would recommend for people that are not comfortable maybe sitting cross-legged on the floor, I'm going to say sit on a chair and you want to have your feet flat on the ground. Right? Spine erect, shoulders relaxed, chin parallel to the floor. And you're going to put your palms upturned on your lap. Right? So you're sitting there very comfortable. You start to relax. You're going to close your eyes and you're going to lift the gaze to the point between the eyebrows. And that's the point of concentration. So you're going to keep your attention there throughout the whole meditation as much as you can. And when you're aware that it's gone somewhere else, then you bring that awareness back to this point, which is the point between your eyebrows. And this is a good posture for you to meditate throughout your meditation practice. And make sure your chair's comfortable. Make it comfortable. Make sure you're like nice and comfortable. What I don't recommend doing, which I know a lot of people do, especially at the beginning, like laying down on the floor, because it kind of creates that state of sleepiness. And you can fall asleep. If you're meditating while you're laying down, you might just like fall asleep. And that's not the point of meditation. The point is to remain aware, right? So again, I recommend sitting on a chair, a very comfortable chair, and just how I said, posture, with that posture.
Yes. Well, since we're already practically there, I'm gonna. Viewers at home can't see this because this is just a podcast, but I'm putting my feet down and I'm putting my hands on my knees, and it was really helpful. Your verbal cue about closing your eyes and focusing on that space, like right above my eyebrows, right where my eyebrows would connect. That was really helpful. I don't think I've ever heard that verbal cue. Okay, so then can you walk us through? I want to invite you, and if you're able to do this for us, a short, brief meditation that we might practice at home.
Yeah. How about we do something where we can just where we can practice anchoring ourselves in our breath.
Perfect.
It'll be excellent. Quick, a few minutes. We'll just keep the attention on our breath, and we're going to notice thoughts. And that's all we're going to do today. And it should be enough to create some peace and stillness. So,
perfect.
Again, go ahead and close your eyes. Put your feet flat on the ground. Your palms on your lap, faced upwards. Relaxing your shoulders. Placing the attention at the point between the eyebrows. And let's do a breathing exercise to relax the body. What you're going to do is inhale through your nose in a double inhalation. So it's going to look something like this. And you're going to hold it at the top and begin to tense the body from low to high pressure, just tensing your body, tensing it, and releasing with a double exhalation through the mouth. Let's do this a few times. So inhale through the nose in a double inhalation. Tensing at the top, tensing the body from low pressure to high pressure, and letting it go with a double exhalation through the mouth. One more time. Tense the body. Double exhalation. Letting it go. And then let's take a few moments to scan the body and notice if there's any tension, any stress lingering anywhere in the body. And just breathing in and breathing out, letting go, relaxing. Consciously relaxing. Giving yourself some permission to relax. This is your time. Now begin to notice the breath. Notice how it flows in through the nose and how you exhale, how the breath leaves the body. Don't control the breath, just let it flow naturally. Keeping your attention there on the breath, breathing in, breathing out. Mentally saying, breathing in, I am aware that I am breathing in. Breathing out, I am aware that I am breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in peace, exhaling ease. Peace and ease. Peace and ease. Noticing if a thought enters your awareness, just notice the thought and let it go. And bring the attention back to the breath. Breathing in, breathing out. Peace and ease. Peace and ease. Begin to deepen the breath, breathing in, breathing out, making the breath deeper and deeper, breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out. You can wiggle your fingers and toes. Keeping your eyes closed, bringing the hands to prayer position in front of you. Taking a moment of gratitude, thanking yourself for being here, for practicing, for taking a few minutes out of the day to still the mind and the body, for taking this time to cultivate a little peace, a little joy. Taking a moment of gratitude for the breath, for the body, for all the blessings, for your friends, for your family. And we'll close with an Om. We'll gently exhale through the mouth, breathing in. And Om. All right, thank you for allowing me to guide you today.
That was wonderful.
A few minutes.
Thank you so much. I hope listeners were able to follow along and they're feeling how I'm feeling, which is totally calm and relaxed. And also, interestingly, I was feeling really like it was stuffy in this room before. And even that went away. Just kind of like, I'm comfortable here. Like, so that was really, thank you so much for doing that for us.
Oh, thank you for allowing me to do that on your podcast.
Yes, this is so special. Just to wrap up,
yes.
I'm going to do the rapid fire questions that we do for our guests. Just 3. And first one's easy. What is something that you're celebrating? And it could be super big, super small, whatever comes to mind, something that gets your matraca, your celebration.
Oh, okay. Yes, I've seen this. I don't know why I was surprised. Like, I've listened to your podcast. I'm like, why am I surprised that she's asking me this? Actually, a good one. On my first episode for Rompe, I was talking to Janine about one of my intentions was to not drink this year. Mm-hmm. And I'm very proud to say that I haven't had one sip of alcohol this year. And I went to Puerto Vallarta for 2 weeks, and we know how that can be.
Yes.
And I went to party with friends, but I didn't get tempted at all to drink. And I also went to Vegas too. And again, it just like, I don't know, it kind of just fell off. I'm not really tempted. So I'm celebrating that for myself because I'm like, I hope that habit just like fell off, and it's like I can
That is such a big celebration, and definitely some environments where that could be very challenging. So that's great. Okay, what's something that goes in la basura that you're canceling, that you're done with? You know, it could be a concept, it could be a thing, it could be a person, whatever it is. What goes in la basura?
I think self-doubt. No, I don't think. I know.
Yes.
Well, we're going to trash this self-doubt.
Yes.
Because I got time for that. Like, we have to have confidence in our abilities and ourselves to just follow our hearts and do things that we like desire, right? That are good for us. So no more like doubting myself, whether I'm good or worthy enough. Like, I am worthy. Okay. I'm worthy and I'm good enough for just being alive and for being here. I don't have to do anything else to be worthy canceling that negative like chit chatter, self-doubt.
Yes. Okay. I love that. That's
moving with courage.
Moving with courage. Yes. And then is there anything that's been inspiring you? It could be like a book, a poem, a person, anything that's been inspiring you lately, a movie, a show, whatever.
Ooh, to be honest with you, something that really inspired me, I think, was the beach. Like spending time at the beach, because when you're just like standing in front of the waves and the water and you dip yourself, you just realize like, that's what's important in life, that connection with like nature, right?
Yes.
And so it's been inspiring me in a different way, not in a way to like hustle or do this or do that, more in a way of like relax, like take care of yourself, relax, stop putting so much pressure on yourself. Just be like the ocean. Like, it's so effortless. The ocean's not planning to do anything. It's just like throwing out waves.
It flows, literally.
It flows. Yeah. And it's beautiful.
Ease. With the ease of that breathing, honestly, the cycle of the breathing felt very much like a wave.
Exactly.
So yeah, I love that.
So that was really inspirational. And I keep thinking a lot about the beach because every time I go, I'm just like, okay, it's just a reminder to like, just take it easy, right? Like, don't stress. Like, it's not that serious. Sometimes things,
that's really bottom line. Like, it's really not that serious.
Yeah. I've been listening
literally everything is not that serious.
I've been listening to some like different research and on a quick note, I've been listening to some research about things that people like research about death and people who are on their deathbeds. And they all agree on similar things. And this is from different research that I've been like reading on, right? It's like people regret like not being kind to themselves, like being so hard on themselves, right? Like be kind to yourselves, number one, was one thing. Also, two is like living the life that you want to live, not the life that someone else wants you to live. So like doing that for yourself. And also like serving others, making sure that the work that you're doing, the things that you're doing, like, you know, even your podcast, right? I'm sure it's serving a lot of people who are listening. You're inspiring people, and that's very meaningful. So I don't know. It's not that serious. I think once we get to the end of our lives, we'll maybe have that realization that things were not that serious, right? Yeah. And hopefully you lived life in such an authentic way that you are able to sit on. That's at least what I want. I want to be on my deathbed, and I want to make sure that I'm like happy with everything that I did. Right?
Yes. That you lived the life that you wanted. You were in service to others.
You were kind to yourself and to others.
And you were kind to yourself. Then that one's very hard. You know, that one, people I think struggle with that a lot. Well, thank you so much. This was lovely. Where can people find your podcast and your coffee?
Yes. So podcast, Rompe Podcast on Instagram, coffee, rompecoffee.com.
Okay, lovely.
Yes, thank you. Well, thank you for inviting me.
Yes. Tamarindo Podcast is Brenda Gonzalez and Delsy Sandoval. We are also the show's executive producers. Jeff Ricards wrote our theme song. Sonoro Media's Karina Riveroll provides production support, and Cliva Torres edits our episodes for YouTube. The best way to support our work is to rate and review Tamarindo or share an episode with a friend. Get in touch with us at tamarindopodcast.com.
Sonoro.
I'm not going to lie, you're slacking. You're slacking on starting that business you've been holding off on. It's just living in your head. And if you don't act now, that idea is going to leave, or maybe someone's going to take that idea. And there's a tool that I personally use, and that is Shopify. You don't need to be a web designer. You can just start moving, zooming in, adding the text you need, adding pictures you need. And Shopify has so many templates you can use from. Get it out of your head and onto a website with Shopify. Shopify makes it simple to create your brand, open for business, and get your first sell. They make it easy to manage growing your business. They help with details like shipping, taxes, and payments from one single dashboard, allowing you to focus on all the important stuff like growing your business. With Shopify, your first sale is closer than you think. Established in 2025 has a nice ring to it, doesn't it? Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/sonoro, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/sonoro to start selling with Shopify today. Shopify.com/sonoro.